If I say Scottish fairy to you, what do you picture? Tiny, wings, perhaps a wee sparkling creature sitting upon a mushroom? Well, the old Scots might have told you not to get quite so close. Good afternoon from my little corner in bonny Scotland. And welcome to episode 1 of Before the Story Changed. Now, this is where I'm going to go back to the old accounts, finding out what was actually recorded and separating it from what's been added later on. And today we're starting with Scottish fairies, because they weren't necessarily the sweet little innocent creatures that we've come to picture. In the northeast of Scotland, folklorist Walter Gregor recorded that folk called them things like the fair folk and the good neighbours. And apparently it's because they didn't like being called fairies. They were said to live inside green hills and knolls, sometimes near rivers, lochs and seas, not a wee mushroom house. You see, the old beliefs imagined something grander, palaces where a whole other society existed, right alongside our very own. And nearly 2 centuries earlier, the Reverend Robert Kirk of Aberfoyle, he had written something similar, remarkably so. Kirk called them the subterraneans. He described them as beings that existed somewhere between the human world and the spirit world, that they lived largely unseen beside us. And here, this is where the modern depiction starts falling apart. These weren't cute little magical companions. Scottish tradition has them interacting with humans, taking folk, requiring human help, rewarding kindness, or punishing somebody who crossed them. Walter Gregor even recorded a story about a Highland woman collected by a stranger and taken into a fairy hill. Once she stepped inside, she found it to be a magnificently bright lit hall. She'd been brought there to help a fairy give birth. Not necessarily another universe through a sparkling portal. Sometimes apparently it was just right there. Perhaps inside a hill that you'd walk past your entire life. And that's why I've decided to do this series. Not to tell you that folklore never changes, because of course it does. That's what oral tradition does. But I want you to know how it changed. What did our old storytellers actually say and record? What belonged to one part of Scotland but not to another? What got added later? And what have we completely forgotten? So here's the thing. Don't take my word for it either. Go looking. Because sometimes when you scrape away the modern versions that you find online, you're not going to find a less interesting story. You're going to find a stranger one. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Love, the Highland Scribe.